Your heart beats about 100,000 times a day. It is a pump, and it never stops. Because the fluid it moves, your blood, has to reach every corner of your body and cannot be allowed to sit still even for a moment. But you have a second fluid system inside you. It is just as vast as your blood vessels. It reaches nearly everywhere they do, and it carries several liters of fluid every single day, uphill, from your toes and your fingertips all the way back to your neck, against gravity. And it has no pump, no heart, no central engine of any kind. Think about how strange that is. There is a river inside you that has to flow uphill, all day, every day, for your entire life, and there is nothing at the center pushing it. If your blood had no pump, you would be dead in minutes. Yet this other system moves its fluid without one, quietly, and most people never even notice it is there until something goes wrong. So the question is simple and genuinely fascinating. What moves it? And the answer matters more than a piece of trivia, because an entire industry has been built on getting this answer wrong. There are brushes, and massages, and expensive tools, and detox rituals, all sold on the premise that your lymph is stagnant, clogged, sitting still, full of toxins, waiting for you to pay someone to get it flowing again. Once you understand what actually moves this fluid, you will be able to tell exactly which of those things is real, medicine, which is harmless, and which is simply selling you a solution to a problem you do not have. Let us start with what this system even is, because most people have only the vaguest idea. Your blood travels out to your tissues through smaller and smaller vessels, until it reaches the tiniest ones, where it delivers oxygen and nutrients to your cells. At that level, the vessels are slightly leaky by design, and fluid seeps out of them into the spaces between your cells. This is normal and necessary. Your cells are bathed in this fluid. It is how they receive supplies and get rinsed. But that creates a problem. Fluid keeps leaking out into your tissues all day long, and if nothing collected it and brought it back, you would swell up like a sponge. In fact, that is exactly what happens when this system fails. So you have a second network of vessels whose entire job is to collect that leaked fluid, along with waste products, stray proteins, and old immune cells, and carry it back to your bloodstream to be recirculated. Once the fluid enters these vessels, we stop calling it tissue fluid and start calling it lymph. And the network that carries it is the lymphatic system. It moves a serious volume. Every day, this system collects and returns several liters of fluid to your blood. If it stopped completely, you would swell severely within hours and could not survive long. This is not an optional wellness accessory. It is a core piece of your plumbing, as essential as your veins. And it does a second job along the way. Scattered through the network are hundreds of small filtering stations called lymph nodes. As lymph passes through them, immune cells inspect it for signs of infection. This is why your nodes swell up when you are sick. They are not malfunctioning. They are crowded with immune cells responding to a threat. So this system is both your drainage network and a major highway of your immune system, all in one. That immune role is worth one more sentence, because it explains something you have felt many times without understanding it. When you get sick, and the glands in your neck swell up and get tender, those glands are lymph nodes. What you are feeling is your lymph carrying evidence of the infection to a filtering station, where immune cells are multiplying rapidly to mount a defense. The swelling is the sound of the system working, catching the threat as the fluid passes through. So the same network that drains your tissues is also constantly surveilling that fluid for danger, which is a large part of why a system most people never think about is one they genuinely cannot live without. Now back to the puzzle. All of that fluid has to get from wherever it leaked out, often down in your legs and feet, all the way back up to the base of your neck, where the lymphatic system empties into two large veins and rejoins your blood. That means it has to travel upward, against gravity, through your whole body, with no central pump driving it. Before we get to how, it is worth asking why the two systems are built so differently, because the contrast tells you something important about what your lymph actually is. Your blood is under real pressure and moving fast. It has to be, because it is delivering oxygen to tissues that will start dying within minutes if the supply is interrupted. A job that urgent and that constant needs a powerful central pump running without pause, and it needs high pressure to force blood out to the farthest capillaries and back. That is your heart, and that is why losing it for even a moment is fatal. Your lymph is a completely different kind of job. It is not delivering anything urgent. It is doing slow, steady housekeeping, collecting fluid that leaked out and returning it over the course of the day. Nothing catastrophic happens in the next 60 seconds if a bit of lymph moves slowly. So the system does not need speed, and it does not need high pressure. It needs to be reliable, gentle, and steady. And it needs to keep working in 1,000 different places at once, wherever fluid happens to be leaking. And for that job, a single central pump would actually be a poor design. High pressure would damage the delicate, leaky vessels that have to absorb fluid from the tissues. A central pump would also be a single point of failure. Instead, the lymphatic system uses the opposite strategy. Low pressure, gentle, and distributed, with the pumping spread across the entire network so that no one part is critical. It is slower and humbler than your circulation, but it is also more robust in its own way, and it is exquisitely matched to the unhurried task it performs. So the lack of a central pump is not a flaw or an oversight. It is the right design for a slow, gentle, everywhere at once kind of job. Which sets up the obvious question, if there is no central pump, what does the distributed pumping? The answer is 5 mechanisms working together. And the first one is the most surprising. The main driver is that the lymphatic vessels pump themselves. This is the part almost nobody knows, and it is beautiful. The larger lymphatic vessels are not passive tubes. Their walls contain muscle, and that muscle contracts, rhythmically, on its own, squeezing the vessel and pushing the fluid forward. The lymphatic system does not have one central pump, because it has thousands of tiny ones, distributed all along its own vessels. Here is how it works in detail, because the design is genuinely elegant. Along these vessels are one-way valves, spaced at intervals, that only let fluid pass in one direction, toward your neck. The section of vessel between 2 of those valves is a functional unit, and it has a name, the lymphangin. Each lymphangin is wrapped in muscle, and it contracts like a tiny chamber, squeezing the lymph through the valve ahead of it and into the next segment. The valve behind it snaps shut so nothing flows backward. Then the next lymphangin contracts and passes the fluid on again. So the fluid moves like a bucket brigade, a chain of little muscular chambers, each contracting in turn, each handing the lymph forward to the next, valve by valve, all the way up your body. Researchers who study this describe each lymphangin as acting like a miniature heart, which means you do not have one heart for your lymph. You have thousands of them, lined up along the vessels, quietly squeezing. And this intrinsic pumping is not a minor contributor. In your legs at rest, this self-pumping by the vessels themselves accounts for roughly 2/3 of all the lymph movement. The vessels are doing most of the work on their own, without any help from you. Even better, this system is smart. The muscle in these vessels senses how hard it has to work and adjusts. When you stand up and gravity makes the job harder, or when a tissue swells and pressure builds, the lymphatic muscle responds by contracting harder and faster. Studies have measured the force of contraction climbing substantially when the vessels face more resistance. So this is not a dumb, fixed pump. It is a responsive one that ramps up exactly when it is needed. That alone should reframe how you think about your lymph. It is not a stagnant swamp waiting to be stirred. It is an active, self-driving, self-adjusting network that is pumping itself right now as you listen to this, whether you do anything about it or not. But the vessels do not do it entirely alone, and the other 4 movers are where your daily life comes in. The second mover is your one-way valves, which we just met. They deserve a moment on their own, because they are what make everything else possible. Without valves, any squeeze on a lymph vessel, from the muscle in its wall or from anything outside it, would just push the fluid a little in both directions, and it would slosh back when the squeeze released. The valves are what turn every squeeze, from any source, into net forward progress. They are the reason this whole pumpless system can work at all. Every push counts, because the fluid can only go one way. The third mover is the one you have the most control over, and it is your skeletal muscles. The muscles you move on purpose. Many lymphatic vessels run right alongside your muscles, so every time a muscle contracts, it bulges and squeezes the lymph vessels next to it, pressing the fluid onward. And because of the valves, that squeeze always moves lymph in the right direction, toward your heart. This is the skeletal muscle pump, and it is why movement matters so much. At rest, it provides roughly the remaining third of lymph flow in your legs. But during activity, when your muscles are contracting over and over, it ramps up enormously. Walking, in other words, is not just good for your heart and your legs. Every step is squeezing lymph up and out of your lower body. The fourth mover is your breathing, and this one is genuinely clever. When you take a deep breath, your diaphragm drops, and the pressure inside your chest and abdomen changes. That pressure shift acts like a suction, helping to draw lymph up through the largest lymphatic vessel, the one running up through your torso, and pull it toward the point where it drains into your veins. It is a bit like the way squeezing and releasing a straw can draw liquid up. And here is the practical part. Deep, slow. Belly breathing produces this effect far more strongly than shallow chest breathing. So the simple act of breathing deeply genuinely assists your lymph, particularly on that final, hardest stretch where it has to enter the veins against the pressure of the blood already flowing there. And the fifth mover is your arteries. Your lymph vessels often run right next to your arteries, and every time your heart beats, those arteries pulse and expand. That pulsing gently massages the neighboring lymph vessels, giving the fluid another small nudge along. So even your heartbeat, which does not directly pump your lymph, ends up helping move it secondhand, through the vessels that lie beside it. Put all five together and the picture is complete. The vessels pump themselves, thousands of tiny chambers squeezing in sequence. One-way valves turn every squeeze into forward motion. Your moving muscles press the fluid onward. Your breathing sucks it up toward your veins, and your pulsing arteries nudge it along the way. No central pump, because none is needed. The work is spread across the whole body, and much of it is powered simply by you being alive and moving. Let me make that concrete by following a single drop of fluid on its journey, because it turns the mechanism into a story you can picture. Imagine a bit of fluid that has just leaked out of a blood vessel down in your foot into the tissue around your cells. It gets collected into the smallest lymphatic vessels, the delicate ones with overlapping edges that act like tiny one-way flaps, letting fluid in but not back out. Now it is lymph, and it has the entire height of your body to climb. It enters a collecting vessel, and the first lymphangin it reaches contracts, squeezing it up through a valve. The valve shuts behind it. The next lymphangin contracts and passes it on again. Meanwhile, you take a step, and your calf muscle bulges and presses the whole vessel, giving the fluid an extra shove. You take another step, another squeeze. The drop climbs past your knee, valve by valve, contraction by contraction, muscle press by muscle press. Near your thigh, an artery pulses beside the vessel and nudges it along a little further. It continues up through your torso, gathering with lymph from the rest of your lower body into the largest lymphatic vessel of all, running up through your chest. And here it faces the hardest moment of the whole trip, because it has to enter one of the large veins at the base of your neck, pushing into blood that is already flowing under its own pressure. This is where your breathing earns its keep. You take a deep breath, your diaphragm drops, the pressure in your chest changes, and that shift helps draw the lymph up and deliver it across the finish line, back into your bloodstream, where it becomes part of your blood again. That entire journey, from your foot to your neck, uphill, happened with no central pump. Just a chain of tiny squeezes, your steps, your pulse, and your breath, handing one drop of fluid all the way home. And your body is doing that for countless drops, everywhere, all day long, without you ever noticing. Which brings us to the single most important practical consequence of all this. And it is the opposite of what the wellness industry sells you. The enemy of your lymphatic system is not toxins, it is stillness. Look again at those 5 movers. The vessels pump themselves no matter what, but 2 of the biggest helpers, your muscle movement and your deep breathing, only work when you actually move and breathe. So what happens when you sit perfectly still for hours, at a desk, on a long flight, on the couch all evening? The intrinsic pump keeps going, but the muscle pump goes quiet. Your muscles are not contracting, so they are not squeezing the vessels. So a major assist to lymph flow simply switches off. And down in your legs, where gravity is already working against you, and the fluid has the farthest to climb, lymph starts to pool. That is why your ankles swell after a long flight. That is why your legs feel heavy and puffy after a day of sitting. It is not that toxins built up. It is that you stopped running the pump. You took away the muscle movement that normally helps push the fluid up and out, and gravity did the rest. And the fix is not a product. The fix is to move. Stand up, walk around, flex your calves, take some deep breaths. Every one of those directly reactivates the movers we just described. Your lymph does not need to be rescued from stagnation by a special tool. It needs you to stop sitting still, which is the one thing it cannot do for you. And there is a beautiful piece of confirmation for all of this, hiding in how doctors actually treat the people whose lymphatic systems are genuinely damaged. When someone has real, diagnosed swelling from an impaired lymphatic system, the medical treatment is not a drug and not a machine. It is, in large part, a careful, deliberate recreation of the exact 5 movers we just walked through. Trained therapists use gentle, specific hand techniques that manually push fluid along the vessels, standing in for the vessel's own squeezing. Patients wear compression garments that press on the limb from the outside, standing in for the muscle pump. They are prescribed specific exercises to fire those muscles, and they are taught deep breathing to drive the diaphragmatic suction. Think about what that tells you. Medicine's best treatment for a broken lymphatic system is to manually reproduce the ordinary forces that a working body generates for free, which means your moving, breathing body is, every single day, delivering the very therapy that patients with damaged systems have to receive in a clinic. You are getting the treatment automatically, just by living in your body and using it. The people who have to pay for it are the ones whose bodies can no longer provide it on their own. That is how good the free version is. Now let us deal honestly with the industry, because this is where you can save yourself a lot of money, and also where I have to be fair rather than dismissive. There is a whole world of lymphatic drainage products and services. Dry brushing, where you brush your skin with a stiff brush supposedly to stimulate lymph flow. Lymphatic drainage massages and facials. Special rollers and tools. Vibrating plates. Detox teas and cleanses aimed at your lymph. And the marketing behind almost all of it runs on the same idea that your lymph is sluggish, congested, clogged with toxins, and needs an external intervention to get moving and to flush those toxins out. Here is the honest reckoning. First, the toxin story is largely wrong. Your lymphatic system is not a storage tank for toxins that sit around waiting to be released. It is a fluid return and immune system. The organs that actually neutralize and clear toxins from your body are your liver and your kidneys, and they do it continuously without any help from a brush. So the entire premise that you are clogged with toxins your lymph is failing to drain is not how your body works. Second, for a healthy person, your lymph does not need help draining. We just spent this whole discussion establishing that it is an active, self-pumping, self-adjusting system that runs on your ordinary movement and breathing. A healthy lymphatic system in a person who moves around is not stagnant and does not need unclogging. The best things you can do for it are free, and you are supposed to be doing them anyway. Move, breathe, stay hydrated. Third, and this is where I want to be fair, because the debunkers often overshoot here. Lymphatic drainage as a medical therapy is completely real, and it is genuine, evidence-based medicine. But it is for a specific condition called lymphedema. Lymphedema is real, and it can be serious. It happens when the lymphatic system is actually damaged or blocked, so that fluid truly cannot drain properly and builds up, usually in an arm or a leg, causing significant, chronic swelling. The most common cause in this country is cancer treatment. When lymph nodes are removed or damaged during surgery or radiation, most familiarly in some people after breast cancer treatment, who develop swelling in the arm. There is also a form people are born with. For those patients, the drainage is genuinely impaired, and the treatment is specialized and effective. It is called complete decongestive therapy, and notice what it actually consists of. Manual lymphatic drainage, a very specific, gentle technique performed by trained, certified therapists. Compression garments, which mimic the squeezing that muscles normally provide. Exercise, to activate the muscle pump. And deep breathing, to drive that diaphragmatic suction. In other words, the real medical treatment for a damaged lymphatic system is a careful, professional replication of the exact natural forces we described. It works because it substitutes for the movers that are no longer working on their own. So the distinction is this: if you have diagnosed lymphedema, manual lymphatic drainage from a certified therapist is real, appropriate care, and you should follow it. If you are a healthy person whose lymphatic system works fine, the same techniques sold as a detox or a wellness ritual are solving a problem you do not have. They are borrowing the credibility of a real medical treatment and applying it where it is not needed, which is not to say those things are worthless. A gentle massage feels wonderful and is genuinely relaxing. Dry brushing exfoliates your skin and feels invigorating. If you enjoy them, enjoy them. Just enjoy them for what they honestly are. a pleasant experience, and not because your lymph was congested and needed rescuing. The gap between how these things are marketed and what they actually do is the whole point. You are usually paying for a nice sensation dressed up as a medical necessity. So what should you actually do for your lymphatic system? The list is short, unglamorous, and free, which is exactly why nobody can build a business around it. Move your body regularly, and do not sit still for hours on end. This is by far the biggest lever. Any movement helps, but walking is ideal, because the rhythmic contraction of your leg muscles is a powerful lymph pump for the part of your body where fluid has the hardest time climbing out. If you are stuck sitting for a long time, get up periodically, and even just pumping your ankles and calves while seated helps. Breathe deeply, sometimes on purpose. A few minutes of slow, deep belly breathing genuinely assists that final drainage into your veins. It costs nothing, and you can do it anywhere. Stay reasonably hydrated, since lymph is mostly water and dehydration makes all your fluids more sluggish. And that is essentially it. There is no special protocol, no tool you need to buy, no ritual you are neglecting. A body that moves and breathes is running its lymphatic system exactly as designed. Now the part I always owe you, and with this topic it genuinely matters, because real lymphatic problems exist, and they should not be mistaken for a wellness issue. See a doctor, rather than reaching for a drainage massage, if any of the following is true. If you have persistent swelling in one arm or one leg, especially if it does not go down overnight, and most especially if you have had cancer treatment or lymph node removal on that side, that can be lymphedema, and it needs proper diagnosis and specialized care, not a spa treatment. Early treatment matters. If you have a swollen lymph node that does not go away after a few weeks, or that is hard, painless, fixed in place, or growing, particularly if it comes with unexplained weight loss, night sweats, or persistent fevers. Swollen nodes are usually just fighting an infection and settle down. But those specific features are worth having a doctor evaluate promptly because they can occasionally signal something serious. And here is a genuinely important safety point. If you develop sudden swelling in one leg, especially with pain, warmth, or redness, do not massage it and do not treat it as a lymph issue. That can be a blood clot in a deep vein, and massaging a clot is dangerous because it can dislodge. That is a situation for urgent medical care, not for any kind of drainage technique. Before we finish, the reminder I will always give you, and I mean it sincerely. This is an explainer, not medical advice. Nothing here is meant to diagnose, to treat, or to replace a conversation with a professional who knows your body and your history. If you have real swelling, persistent swollen nodes, or a history of cancer treatment, please see a doctor rather than a wellness practitioner, because the difference between a normal lymphatic system and a damaged one is a medical question. So let us pull it all together. You have a second-grade fluid system inside you, moving several liters a day, uphill, against gravity, with no central pump. And it manages this because it is not one pump, but thousands. The vessels squeeze themselves, segment by segment, each little chamber contracting in turn and handing the fluid forward through one-way valves. Your moving muscles press the vessels and push the lymph onward. Your deep breathing draws it up toward your veins, and your pulsing arteries nudge it along. The whole system is designed to run on you, simply being alive and moving, which means the real enemy of your lymph is not toxins. It is stillness. And the real remedy is not a brush or a tool or a detox. It is movement and breath. The two things that reactivate the pumps you carry with you everywhere. The industry sells you the idea that your lymph is stuck and needs rescuing. The truth is that your lymph is one of the most quietly capable systems in your body, pumping itself faithfully and asking almost nothing of you in return, except that you get up out of your chair and move around, which you were supposed to do anyway. So the next time someone offers to get your lymph flowing again for a fee, you will know the honest answer. It never stopped. And the one thing that keeps it flowing better than anything they can sell you is completely free, available right now, and as simple as standing up and taking a walk.